pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
President Beaver, this agenda was developed and went out prior to last week's special meeting. I placed the opportunity to go into closed session after this meeting in the event that any board members wanted to continue that conversation as we discussed that Thursday night. And then since there is no further need for discussion, and so I would ask for someone to move to amend the agenda to remove closed session for this evening.
So moved.
Support.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. So carried.
Thank you.
Next item on agenda is items of interest, recognition, and inquiry. Anything from the Board of Education members?
Not today.
Mr. Richley.
This coming Saturday, I wanted to invite the community. There's going to be the Walk for Warmth up in Port Huron, and that's on the 28th, and it starts at, I believe the actual walk starts at 10 o'clock, or no, excuse me. The walk starts at 9:30, but the registration starts at 9 o'clock, and the minimum donation to participate in the walk is $20. To get a t-shirt, it's $30, and the proceeds that come in from that will go towards the Blue Water Community Action Agency, which will benefit families that can't afford their heating bills, which obviously that's a big issue, so thank you.
All right. Any other? Okay. Administration.
Obviously, we had midwinter break, and unfortunately, several now days of closure due to cold. That's interfered with with a variety of activities for students, including the robotics competition for last Friday. So we're hoping to get all those rescheduled, and as we get them rescheduled, we will get them out on the district website, because we invite yourselves as board members and the entire community to come to what are going to be some pretty fun, exciting academic competitions over the next couple of weeks.
Great. Next item is special recognition. East China School District Endowment Fund grants, Colleen Stover and Laura Karadimas presenting. Welcome back, ladies.
Good evening, Dr. Skalka and board members. Thank you for having us here tonight. First off, I just want to say that Saturday we had our 4th annual Chili Heart 5K run, which was a huge success. I don't know how we ended up with above 0 degree reading that day, but we were very thankful for that. There was a great time had by all. There were students there, families there, avid runners there. There was just walkers, everybody was there, so it was really a nice day. We want to thank everybody who participated in it, all our sponsors. We had wonderful support of our sponsors, and it makes it all possible to give the grants that we do give out to the schools. Okay, thank you. I guess we'll start, if I remember how to do this. Okay, a little bit about the foundation. It's an endowment fund through the Community Foundation of St. Clair County. With the spring 2015 awards, over $107,000 has been given out in grants. Let's see, 2015 spring grant award recipients, 14 grants ranging from $150 to $789 are being awarded tonight for a total of $6,981.69. Okay, our first recipient is Barb Smith from Marine City Middle School. Barb will be taking the 6th graders from Marine City Middle School on a field trip to the Sea Life Michigan Aquarium in Auburn Hills. Is Barb here? No, Barb. Oh. Next recipient is Michelle Barker from St. Clair Middle School. Michelle is purchasing a one-year subscription to Educreations, allowing her blended learning students to access online lessons. Next recipient, Megan Hargrave and Sarah Ranger and Robin Lizchek at Gearing Elementary. Megan, Sarah, and Robin will be purchasing puppets, big books, board books, and CD song nursery rhyme sets for the early childhood program. Next up, Pat Keck and Jason Steyer from Riverview East. Pat and Jason will be supervising a project-based collaboration with Bell River students, resulting in the construction and installation of mini libraries. Next recipient is Brooke Nowakowski, Eddy Elementary. Brooke is bringing Randy Baker from Naturalist Endeavors to Eddy Elementary. The fourth graders will study vertebrates versus invertebrates, and the fifth graders will experience colonial America. Thank you, Mr. Carlson. Next recipient, Catherine Woolman, Marine City Middle School. Catherine is using the money for supplies and the admission costs for several students to attend the St. Clair County Community College Science Fair. Next recipients, Julie Gunderson, Alicia White, and Harriet Talaski, Bell River Elementary. Julie and her fellow first grade teachers will be taking all their students to the Port Huron Museum. Next recipient, Laura McDonald from St. Clair Middle School. Laura is purchasing a classroom set of library books as well as an iPad mini for use in videotaping her classes. Next recipient is Laura Distelrath from St. Clair High School. Laura will be purchasing a classroom set of headphones as well as some power strips to enhance the life of her laptop computers. Next is Sheila Millett, St. Clair Middle School. Sheila will be taking her sixth graders to the Michigan Sea Life Aquarium. Next recipient is Pamela Schneider, Bell River Elementary. Pamela is purchasing a classroom set of gymnic ball chairs. Next recipient is Steve Fox from Marine City High School. Steve is using his grant money to purchase several drum mallet sets and techs for the high school band program. Next recipient is Lori Hannon from St. Clair Middle School. Lori is using her grant money to purchase materials needed for her students to create a mosaic tile wall in St. Clair Middle School. Congratulations to the 2015 Spring Grant recipients. Squeeze. Thank you, and always to donate, you can make your checks payable to the Community Foundation of St. Clair County. As you can see, it goes to a really good cause. So thank you again, and good night.
Thank you very much. Next item on our agenda is the St. Clair High School. Mr. Ron Miller, importance of the comprehensive high school. Academic spotlight.
Well, let's see if I can get this going here. Well, Dr. Skalka, members of the board, I'm going to talk about the comprehensive high school, which is like this big, so I'm going to do my best to cruise through it. The comprehensive high school gets its name from the fact that all students are welcome. There's no specialized application process, which is not a surprise for us, but there is a competition out in our community, so I want to make that distinction. It also references the fact that wide-ranging programming is available to all students. So a couple questions, why talk about this? And can I keep it to 8 minutes? So we're going to hurry on. It's timely. This past Sunday, the Detroit Free Press and the Times Herald both had concerning articles regarding the evaluation and monitoring of charter schools and how they are funded and how that impacts public education. I want to make sure we know what a comprehensive high school is and the fact that it affects students and offers them multiple pathways for success. And I think probably most importantly, you know, we're all working really hard, and I just want to remind board members and administrators, faculty, staff, students, community members to see the positive fruits of their labors in support of schools. So let's take a look. So what does a high school look like? I'm going to be using a lot of St. Clair High School information because I have quick access to that, and since we haven't had school in the last 2 weeks, I really haven't been able to see much from Marine City, but really it's indicative of both schools. So what you see would be at both ends. So what does the high school look like? Well, technically and officially, this is what the high school looks like. This is really more what it looks like. Fortunately, the snow has been cleared. We're ready to go as soon as the temperatures break. These are some details related to it. I mean, they're big places, 53 acres, 220,000 square feet, lots of kids and staff working in support of them. There are some smiling, beautiful faces working towards the success of our students. High schools look like in this area, 96% of our students attend regularly, 98% are graduating. We also have students in need of support. About 12% of the students receive special education services, about 5% receive support through 504 federal programs, and around 30% of our students receive free and reduced lunch. That number's probably low. High school kids tend not to fill out those forms, but just to give you an idea who we're servicing. From the counselor and administration perspective, I mean, we do lots of things, but we're supportive of students and families and the needs of referrals to community resources, and some of this really is hard to deal with. It's like community mental health, it's the teen health center, it's child protective services, sometimes it's even the police. It's daunting, it's emotionally dragging, but the community members rely on us, and we kind of take a moral responsibility to provide those services. So let's look at academics, just so that everybody sees, and this would be representative of both high schools, 9th, 10th, 11th grade, all of our academic areas and our standardized tests, we're having good growth. If we're looking comparatively across the county, this would be Marysville, this would be Marine City, this would be St. Clair. You can see the three schools are pretty competitive, which is the way that it should be. That's the result of our teachers really teaching very complicated materials, keeping kids' attention, giving kids an opportunity to put into practice some theories from the classroom, also teaching kids how to work in groups. This happens to be a reading circle in a social studies class. And again, kids aren't great at it, but they're developing that skill. So what also does the high school look like? Well, advanced placement, dual enrollment, kids taking Michigan virtual classes online, giving them multiple pathways for success, big numbers. AP classes are a lot of work. That's Mr. Diller, our AP Calc instructor. AP classes are also fun. These are some kids in AP Physics making roller coasters. The key was to make it run as fast as it could and stay on the track. So there was lots of duct tape and such for that few days. What does the high school look like from the Tech Center's perspective, another avenue? Well, we've got about 73 kids going to the RESA Tech Center. There are 13 programs offered there. You're going to see about the same numbers from Marine City, proportionally smaller. I'd like to point out that in the Skills USA competition, both schools combined have 12 students in 12 different programs who advanced to this year's regional competition, which just occurred, but I don't have any updated results yet. We'll share those later on. A handsome young lad is one of my favorite all-time students, Danny Williamson. He not only competed in the regional and the state competition, but last year went to the national competition in Kansas City, and there were other students from St. Clair and Marine City as well. He's a special kid just in terms of leadership through the building. These are some other programs, pathways for kids to follow, information tech. So what does high school look like after high school? Well, I think these are important numbers because what we do is really preparing kids for the next level. 83% of our graduates attend college during the first year after high school graduation, and equally importantly, 90% of those kids go back their sophomore year. That indicates that our students are prepared for the next level. 44% complete their degree within 6 years, which is really outstanding. This is not a criticism of the people in this area, but college success is generally related to families that have academic histories, like bachelor's degrees. The adults in this area, about 16%, 16% have bachelor's degrees. So the fact that the families have identified this is important and the schools are able to work with kids to get these kind of numbers is really a tribute to everybody involved. These are just some happy kids. They're done with school. So where do they go to school? These are the top 10 choices from St. Clair High School, and I think you'll find the same from Marine City. The majority of our kids going to SC4, and then there's a pretty equal distribution through the top 10. Michigan State, Macomb Community College are the top 3, and the others have pretty comparable numbers. So academic support, helping kids get there for all students, and that brings up the topic of seminar, which I'll quickly cover. Both high schools have incorporated a seminar period around 25 minutes built into their 4th hour, gives kids a chance to meet with teachers, to receive some daily academic support, mentoring opportunities, and also allows us an opportunity to communicate messages very important to students. So these are just some samples. These are not staged. It's kids working in seminars, good people working with kids. So what do athletics look like from a high school? Well, 19 sports, about 48% of our kids participate. 78% of varsity athletes are MAC all academic, which means a 3.0 or higher GPA. And several contests, 380 scheduled. Give kids an opportunity to develop sportsmanship skills, make some friendships, school spirit, make some pals, work hard, win an occasional state championship, sending a couple kids to college. These are the Mott brothers, if you're not familiar with them. Tyler Mann on the left-hand side and Connor Mann. I used to babysit these kids a million years ago, and they live down the street, both playing at the collegiate level, and every once in a while we get a kid into the pros. It's Tim Lolito, who ironically went from the Saints to the Saints. How about that? This is a picture from the Pink Halo tournament. It's one of the early games. This is a neat annual event. It's athletic, it's community-oriented, it's a fundraiser. I also want to point out in the background the banners that you see displayed. It's a project that Mr. Cook's been working on. We've been squirreling away money from the last few years' athletic fundraising. Just proud of that display and hope that you liked it if you saw it. So what do fine arts look like? About 150 kids in art, about 140 kids in band, about 120 kids in theater. Lots going on in all those areas. This is a sample of some artwork from a Marine City student a few years ago, which actually became the community mental health marketing campaign. This is one of our students from like 2 years ago. I had a nice composite of her. She is a powerful artist. Strong messages. Here's our band who just went down to Disney World. Very nice weather they were enjoying. They wanted to remind you that a year ago they were in the Thanksgiving Day Parade in Detroit, freezing to death. Here's some excerpts from our most recent theater production, Once Upon a Mattress. This would be the Brighton Beach Memoirs, Chicago from last year. Marine City has an outstanding theater program as well, where both schools have productions coming up. So what's community service look like? Well, that comes from athletics as well, but we have about 110 kids in student council and just under 100 in National Honor Society. Including athletics, they have 30+ community service projects. The NHS inductions. There's some of our student activities, our 9th graders getting into things. There's our seniors. There's some support for Mr. Eberhard, if you can't see this right there. The Rake and Run is an annual event that our National Honor Society and Student Council coordinates. This was kind of a neat thing. On Constitution Day, we had some representatives from the Rotary come in, Mr. Mason and Mr. Schaff, brought in copies of the Constitution and then worked with each of our government classes, just kind of answering some questions regarding the Constitution. In terms of community service, we had a great opportunity this year during the Pink Halo project when we had the second annual faculty basketball game. The Mariners won for the second years in a row, just so I can throw that information out. The proceeds and the emotional support really went on behalf of Jim Weimer, the former sports editor from the Times-Herald. He's a longtime friend of the Blue Water area. Joel Weimer, his son, teaches at Marine City High School. And, I mean, we raised a little money for him, but I think it was really helpful for him just to realize that people were thinking of him. Also, just as a side note, Justin Rose, who coordinated the production for Channel 7, is a 2003 St. Clair High School graduate and the son of former principal Rick Rose. Community service doesn't stop, with our kids and our staff. I have to acknowledge Mr. Alley's efforts yesterday, raising money for the Special Olympics. He did the polar plunge down at the St. Clair Marina. He was describing it today, and he wanted to be dramatic with his GoPro camera, and he jumped in, and it was so deep, even he couldn't touch the bottom. So I think that he was a bit unnerved, but we're grateful for his efforts and those of everybody involved in community service. So that is a quick covering of the comprehensive high school and the importance of it in our community. I'm afraid to ask for questions.
Comments or questions?
I don't have any questions.
All
Thank
right.
you very much.
Sure.
Thank you. Nice job.
Next item on our agenda is a consent agenda. A motion is needed for the approval of minutes. Regular Board of Education meeting, January 26, 2015. Special Board of Education meeting, January 29th, 2015. Approval of payment of bills, financial statement, and schedule of investments. Motion needed.
So moved.
Moved by Mrs. Frank,
Support.
support by Mrs. Murphy. Comments or questions? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Pose same sign. So moved. Next item is recognition of persons wishing to address the board. Ms. Kelly, no cards? Okay, seeing none. We'll go on to our reports. First, superintendent's report, Dr. Skalka.
Thank you, President Bewer. I will try to run through these fairly quickly. Recently, you approved an educational travel experience to Europe organized by St. Clair High School, but open to any district student who meets the academic requirements. A similar educational travel experience is being organized by Marine City High School. This one to Costa Rica, also in the spring of 2016, and also open to any district student who meets the academic requirements. This is an action item later in your agenda to approve the educational experience, so I hope that you will do so. Any questions about that? Okay. Bond timeline. Since the passage of the bus bond in November, a great deal of work has been done to prepare for the sale of these bonds. March 3rd, those bonds will go to market. They will be sold. We have a special meeting planned that night to accept the purchase of those bonds, and therefore, as a result, to also then take the money in order to buy the buses. In addition to the purchase of the bonds, we are looking to refinance the existing district bonds. Why would you refinance? The same reason you want to refinance your home. We're hoping to get a better interest rate and thereby be fiscally responsible for our community members who supported us in passing each of these bonds. So that will be on March 3rd. We'll have a special meeting, probably a one-item agenda. Just get in, but we need to approve the sale of those bonds so that the next day the bond marketer, I don't know exactly what we call him, can go forth and finalize that sale. Any questions with respect to that?
What time?
7 p.m.
Okay.
Superintendent evaluation, this is the time of year that the board puts together a subcommittee to complete the superintendent evaluation. I've spoken with President Bewer about both changes in law that might require change, well, it does require changes in the instrument that you have used over the last several years, and maybe changes in timing. The reality is the superintendent, like teachers and like building principals, part of their evaluation is supposed to be done on student growth, and it's hard to evaluate myself or any superintendent in March when state testing is coming up here next week. So, you know, how we would measure that growth. So many districts are moving to a September or October evaluation cycle. So I'd like the subcommittee to be formed, if possible, as soon as possible. And I could meet with that subcommittee. I can go with you over the new law, and the new instrument, and those kind of things. So hopefully maybe tonight you can determine who might want to serve on that, and then I'll contact those folks to set up an initial meeting.
Just I'd like to open it up to comments to anybody in regards to that. That it just makes sense that we don't do this until after all our testing and all that comes in. How can you evaluate somebody on something that's not there when we don't have final results? Just thoughts. And
Fine with me.
Yeah, I would agree to move it to a later time.
I still would like to try to get with that subcommittee
Yep.
maybe in the month of March, and that way we can plan an actual timeline. We know when it's coming in the agendas, and we all work toward meeting those goals.
okay.
Okay?
Mr. Beaver,
Yes.
if I may make a suggestion, like the way that we used to do it, how we would like gather the different,
Evaluations for
right,
each.
the sheet and we
Mhm.
write down the stuff. I mean,
Yep.
I don't see a reason why we can't do that, but then wait for the rest of it until, so that we're not going like a full year without any sort of evaluation. Because it's been since last March. was
That's
when-
correct.
Right,
Yep.
Correct.
so,
Yep.
I mean,
Correct.
just a suggestion.
No, that's fine. And I've got we've got a new form that's state's recommending that we use. So I think if you have interest in being on that subcommittee, please, after the meeting, let me know. I'd like to get that formed, and then let us, I'll get that sample of that new evaluation form out to everybody, and let's start the ball rolling.
Great.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Food service. We received notification from the Michigan Department of Education approving the elements of the district's agreement with Chartwells for the 2015-16 school year. Remember, we approved a 5-year contract, but that has to be renewed with the state annually. And so I will be placing on your March board packet for review and an approval at that meeting the continuation of the agreement approved by MDE with Chartwells. Turf bid, this past week, February 12th, that's 2 weeks ago now because of break and snow day, there's cold days. We received bids to replace the turf at the stadium. Bids came in 2 parts. The first part is for work to remove the existing turf. That's kind of the demolition or site work. And then the second part is the actual laying of the new turf. We are working with Foresight Design, who oversaw the installation of the initial turf the first time. They estimated back in December that the project would be roughly $550,000, for both phases of the project combined. Given the bids received, I will again be recommending at the March meeting to the board that they accept bids in the amount of $517,000, so less than what we were anticipating. Bids came in, I think we had 4 bids on the site work and 7 bids on the new turf. So we had a number of bidders, which is always a positive thing. That allowed us to get the lowest bid, and in fact, a bid below what we were estimating the project to come in at. We have in the process between the 12th and today, Kirk has been doing the work to call references on the two recommended bidders to make sure that they have done this work in the past. They've done it on time and on budget, and that has been the case. So that will be in your March packet as well. Oh, can I just say, maybe this is your question. clarification for everybody, this is a sinking fund project, okay? And so sinking fund, of course, was approved for building maintenance and any building, which includes the stadium, maintenance, so roofs, boilers, and turf. So this is not general fund monies, this is sinking fund monies. Sorry.
That was pretty much it, but I knew that, but the thing that I have a question about is what percentage approximately of the sinking fund is this taking up approximately?
It will be over the course of 2 sinking funds. We're going to pay the site work, and so that work can begin right at the end of the school year. We'll pay that out of this current year's, and the actual laying of the turf will be out of next year, so it'll be spread over 2. We collect roughly $660,000 a year from the sinking fund. This project is at 517, but please understand that that's over 2 of those collections.
Correct.
So it works out that we will have what we believe is an ample reserve for any emergency in case we have roof or other damages that we need to do during the school year. The other point I want to make, and thanks for getting me rambling on this, I appreciate it. We are also, the turf when initially installed, that was 10, 12 years ago. Obviously significant advances in the last 10 to 12 years, and this iteration of the project will also come with a pad, an underlaying pad that is very helpful in concussion prevention. So we're excited about being able to make it not just a new field, but a new and safer field for all of our athletes who use it.
What's the timeline on from beginning to end, from tearing it up to it being
Kirk's going to tell me,
roughly?
correct me if I'm wrong, but we are going to look to start the work the day after the last soccer game and be ready in advance of practice. Correct? So we're probably looking about the 1st of June till about August 8th, 15th, somewhere in that range. Let's not forget that school next year, because Labor Day is as late as it possibly can be. The first day of school, unfortunately, is September 8th. We got to wait, so we're going to have an extra week in the summer, which actually helps for a project like this. But,
I have 2 questions.
okay.
Since we're saving $33,000, or the bid came in $33,000 under what we had budgeted, is there any thought of using that money for any other sinking fund projects that might have been delayed? That's my first question.
Sure. We did not delay a sinking fund project. We actually were fortunate that a couple of things. When the lintel repair, and that's the doorways
Right.
at Bell River, were repaired this past summer, that project came in a little bit under what we budgeted, and the fact that that company was here on site with their workmen and their equipment, they were able to do a project that we did think we were going to have to delay to next summer. That was the repair of the Marine City Middle School roof. It was separating from the building. We got all that done last year on that. So what we've got for this coming summer is this significant project, and then what we're hoping to do again is wait to see. There's nothing specific, but we've got some ECEC roof work that really ought to be done, and so.
The other question I have is, the company that's doing the turf, is there a warranty, or what's the life expectancy of the new turf?
Kirk, help me out if I, again, misspeak, but I'm going to guess 10 to 12 years again.
The life expectancy of the new turf is around 10 to 12-year range. I believe the warranty is like 8 or 9 years.
Okay, thank you.
Am I correct in saying that we don't have like $500,000 in the sinking fund currently? But I mean, we will once.
Correct,
Okay.
that's correct.
Okay.
Yep. And again, for this project, in the way that it has to be done in 2 phases anyway, it works out really well for us.
Yeah.
So we can certainly cover the first phase, and then we'll collect and connect the second phase.
Great.
Okay. Public comment. I'd like to bring closure to a couple of different items that the board has considered recently. The first is the placement of public comment within the agenda. It was asked of the board to consider moving public comment to the end of the agenda. After discussion with several of you and discussion that occurred at the January 29th special board meeting, I believe it best that public comment remain where it is, as you have indicated that in order, you would like to hear public comment before you debate, before you discuss, and before you take action on things, so that that comment might have the most impact it can on those discussions and action. Any questions on that?
I still think it would be a good idea to put it at the end, but I understand what the argument is to not do it, so.
And the last piece that I have is standards of practice. A code of ethics for school board members from the state of Maine was presented to you for consideration. Again, after speaking with several of you and after discussing this with those who were there at the January 29th special meeting, we demonstrated that much of what was in that document is already currently in your board policy 0144.2, which is board ethics. So again, as such, I believe your current standards of practice or board or code of ethics should be maintained as written and adopted.
Comments, questions? Yes, Mr. Russell.
Just a couple comments. Number one, I agree with that, but the other thing is, for people that didn't get the opportunity to see what was in it, there were a lot of things that potentially violated the First Amendment, and that's, well, I mean, there was actually a case at SD4 on their Board of Trustees that, I can't remember who it was, but it was back in 2007, and it was the same exact thing with regard to you cannot discuss things outside the board meeting and all that kind of stuff, and it's just, they went with the ACLU, whichever board member it was, and actually they dropped the case before it went to court because they knew it was going to be mighty expensive. So I mean, that's the biggest reason why I was against it. I mean, that's just my thoughts. I mean, you can restrict how long someone talks, but you can't restrict what they say. I mean, that's even the Constitution protects offensive speech. So I mean, that's just.
Anybody else? Thank you. Next item on our agenda is the information discussion items. Item 1 is the Neola Board Policy Suggested Revisions.
Last month, you were provided a fairly thick stack of policy revisions. Many of them were repetitive because they were they applied to certificated staff in one section of your policies, non-certificated staff in another section, and yet it was the same thing, but we had to do that. So we are asking here tonight that in your action agenda that you will accept the adjustments made. Adjustments are based on recommendation of the service that we use, Neola, who monitors all state and federal lawmaking and regulations, whether it be MDE, the Michigan Department of Ed, or United States Department of Education. So if you had a chance, if you look through those, if you have any questions, I guess now is the discussion time. I know you all look through them. I shouldn't have said it that way. Great.
All right.
Mm-hmm.
Next item, best practices resolution for March meeting.
This is another item similar to the Neola item. We try to put it on for discussion 1 month so that we can act next month. We will be acting on a resolution that says that we are indeed complying with best practices, and therefore we would then be able to claim the funding that goes along with that. That funding has varied in recent years. The best practices themselves have varied in recent years. We have complied with 8 of the 9, 7 of the 8. We will collect the funds, but we can't do it until you pass that resolution. So that's coming in March.
Yes.
Which are the ones that we're not compliant with?
Oh, Mr. Ridgely, you got me.
Comprehensive
comprehensive counseling program is a Michigan K-12 counseling program that is specific in the nature in which it is a kind of counseling curriculum and very specific. Through our wellness committee and through our human sexuality committee, that are both required, we address those items that are in there, and the counselors do. We
And
just
so-
we don't do it through that Michigan model. But you have to do it through the Michigan model to comply with that one particular best practice.
And that's out of, how many are there now?
7. There's 7 of them.
And so what would we have to do to in order to, like, what are the steps that we could take that would comply with that?
There's several. So we offer, I think, outstanding counseling services, but in order to adopt that best practice, we'd have to adopt a specific curriculum, as well as look at the ratio between the school counselors and students in the district, so potentially add additional staff in addition to the curriculum.
Okay, and I think the other thing was, how many do we have to comply with in order to meet the
7 out of 9.
7 out of 9.
Okay.
Yep. We're doing-
So if we did 9 out of 9, the funding wouldn't change?
Not at all.
Okay.
Not at all.
And how much is it, do you know?
This year, it's approximately $50 per student.
Oh, wow.
That's a lot of money.
Yeah.
Mhm. Okay, thank you.
Final discussion item is the elementary school closure deficit presentation. Dr. Skelton.
President Beaver Board, thank you for the opportunity to bring you up to speed on where we are with this very important topic. On September 8th, the board took action to close an elementary school for the 2015-16 school year. The next series of slides are the exact slides that were presented in December regarding this issue. So between September 8th, and December 1st, considerable work was done to determine whether or not we actually could meet that action, whether we could close an elementary school. And what we found was, indeed, we could close Gearing if we made it K-4 at Eddy, moved the 5th graders to St. Clair Middle, moved early childhood, the lower cognitively impaired programs to Pine River, and possibly change boundaries. We did not know how that may affect the overall decision. Benefits to doing that was that, well, first, we realized the board's action. The board acted to close, and we determined a way for which that could be done. It also, a benefit would be to eliminate the overflows between Eddy and Gearing. Overflows are students who might live in Eddy, but because that particular grade level is maxed out, they get sent to Gearing to go to school there, and then usually it's their option to return or to just stay at Gearing until they finish up, and vice versa. The difficulty with that, though, is that transportation often means that the students have to take a transfer bus and will also often get out of school a little bit earlier and miss some instruction in order to get back to that home school and ride that bus back. Also, depending on the option, it might create greater savings than the baseline of $240,000 to $320,000. That baseline is the result of staffing to enrollment, and we recognize that enrollment will fall next year to the tune that we believe 3 fewer teaching sections will be needed, $80,000 each, $320,000. Or yeah, 240, excuse me, 80 times 3, 240,000, or if it's 4 sections, 320. Those are the benefits. Issues that we identified if we were to do this. These were issues we identified back in December. One was our kindergarten enrollment had fallen from what was a decade of 280 to 300 down to 240 this past fall, and we truly we don't know without another year or two of data whether that is a blip or a new normal, as we've been referring to it. Also, the potential impact of the Algonac school grade alignment for enrollment in the district, especially Palms. any yet unknown complications of moving the 5th grade to St. Clair Middle School. And I'll talk about one potentially as we move forward. Option B, which was an option that provided the greatest amount of savings, didn't redistrict any students to Palms or to Bell River. Disposition of furniture, technology, equipment. If we close the school, we'll have a surplus of all of those things, so we would have to determine whether we wanted to store and or dispose of them, and the property itself. Additional issues, replacing the boiler at Eddy and repairing the Pine River lintels. Those doorways at Pine that were replaced at Bell, we need to do it at Pine. We are planning summer of 16, and the Eddy boiler we think has a few more years of life in it. The relocation of the early childhood program and all of the things that go with that. It turns out that licensing and compliance licensing is not an issue. We would make sure that we would have to comply, though. Additional issues, pickup and drop-off of approximately 550 students each day. Lack of open seats and lack of classrooms are a very strong potential. Moving of teacher classroom materials from Gearing to Eddy and Pine River, and also to St. Clair Middle School. And we had applied for a DTE Foundation grant to implement a pilot STEM program back in December. I'll give you an update on that grant here this evening. Okay. So what has been happening since December is we've been examining and doing a lot of homework on all of those things that I just shared with you, all the pros, all the cons, all the benefits, all the issues. So if I could, I'd like to go through those with you this evening and try to give you a detailed accounting of what those pros and cons might be, or what the issues might be with those. The board action to close an elementary school is realized. Though it's determined that a closure of an elementary school is possible, a recommendation to close any specific one, including Gearing, has not been made. The work shifted from is it possible to does it make sense. It does eliminate those overflows as I talked about, but it might create overflows between the new Eddy and Pine River based on the lack of available classroom seats in those Eddy classrooms. Depending on the option, it might save between $240,000 and $320,000. Remember, this was savings that we will see whether we, the $240,000 to $320,000 is savings that we will see whether we close a building or not. This is the reduction in staff based on the reduction in enrollment. The baseline figure again reflects $80,000 each based on an anticipated decrease in enrollment. But we better stick with the $240,000 figure and not be excited about the other, because our secondary enrollment next year will actually maintain or creep up a little bit, as the 8th grade classes going into 9th grade are just a little bit larger than our exiting 12th graders. And similarly, our 5th grade going into 6th is just the same or a little larger than our 6th grade. So the idea that we can eliminate sections at the secondary of classes is going to be much harder there, as the same number of kids will be taking those courses at those levels. So let's take a look at the three aspects of savings that we've been talking about throughout this discussion since December. Let's firm up those instructional positions at 3. And remember that any time we add a teacher back, based on the collectively bargained class size limits of 29 and 30, that's an additional $80,000. So if we were to add back a teaching section, then it wouldn't be 240, it would be down to 160 if that were the case. The non-instructional positions, these refer to the elimination of a principal position, secretary, office paras, custodians, and in the closing of an elementary, and possibly 2 noon aides. As we have discussed recently, lunches, of course, will, if Eddy were to go, to 550, that would be, they're probably about 350 right now, 361? 464. 364, I'm sorry, 364 to 550. So obviously we'll have to add kids to the lunches. Lunches will get larger, or we'll add additional lunches on top of the ones we already offer. And so noon aid services are probably going to be needed, and we would have to transfer those positions. The cost of ownership. One of the reasons why gearing has been discussed so frequently is the fact, as we now know, when it was built as an all-electric facility, no natural gas, and therefore it actually costs almost twice as much than Eddy, which is the next highest cost of operation building. So if we take that line of Gearing's 116 and we look at electricity, we know that in order to keep mechanical systems working, building temperatures are going to have to be kept at 50 degrees, down from the 65 or 70 on weekends and weekdays. We cannot just totally abandon that building and shut everything off, otherwise we risk the damage we risk damaging the mechanical systems. To keep the building at 50 degrees, the result is a savings really about 30 to 35% of the figure for the electricity stated above. So somewhere in the line of $37,000 to $43,000 in savings, as opposed to potentially $116,000 if you were able to just shut off all of the electrical heat. That's not necessarily the case, though, with water and phone. Water, not much water would be needed. We'd need some just to keep sewers and drains and things like that operational. Toilets operational. We figure at least 90%, if not more, would be saved. 95% of phone and data, because we would keep an emergency phone line there in the event something occurred. So as a result, we're looking at a cost of ownership savings of approximately, or estimated, $48,000 as opposed to $124,000, or a total savings of $484,000 at this point. And understanding that the 240 in instructional positions occurs whether we close the building or not. Okay. Option B, which again, this talked about redistricting, and there's been a great amount of discussion since the board took the initial action in September about this. And students we've found, and understandably, are not evenly distributed through the district by resident areas or grade levels. So as a result, every scenario that was investigated by the administration or by the school closure or restructuring committees regarding the change of boundaries increased the number of teaching sections, and therefore decreased the amount of instructional position savings. So whenever you would move a boundary, you'd at least add one more teacher, and you drop that $240,000 by 80 to 160 or even fewer. Students who live in the Pine River Elementary attendance zone and the Marine City High School, middle school, high school attendance zone. This is an issue because if fifth graders move to St. Clair Middle School, but these students are slated to go to Marine City Middle or to Marine City High, then what do they do for fifth grade? Well, one option is to create a transition year in which they would go to Bell or Palms depending on their residence. This would allow, and give them the choice, as is currently the case. It would allow for siblings to stay together, and in this particular case, we would not have to add a teaching section. Another option would be to not allow any choice beyond what is currently allowed for in-district choice. This would then send all of those students, all the K-5 students, to Bell or Palms. And in this particular instance, we're doing is just not the fifth graders, but all K through 5. We're just making that boundary change right now. And in this particular case, we would add 3 sections to Bell, but we would reduce 2 at Pine, but the net is still to add a teaching section and reduce the savings as a result of the move. Third option would be to phase this in, just with new kindergartners instead of moving everyone. Doing this has the same effect in terms of increasing by 1 teaching section. And the last option would be to make Marine City Middle a 5-8 building as well. We could adjust the proposed or the targeted multi-age classroom for next year, so there's no increase in teaching sections, but it would create a situation in which the 5th grade was moved out of Palms, making it a K4 and reducing its enrollment to 168, creating even a couple of more open classrooms. So here the really big issue is what would you do with those 5th graders in that pocket if we made that move? And there. What about the issue of lack of classroom space both in the classroom and in the building? So let's take a look at in the classroom or open seats. If current enrollment is rolled forward and next year's kindergarten is the same as this year, based on class size language, then at the kindergarten, all right, Eddie, the new Eddie, would have room for 7 additional kindergartners than we have planned for right now. If you get an 8th kindergarten student, you are either going to have to overflow them to Pine River, or you'd have to create another teaching section, thus cutting into your savings on instructional positions. 3rd and 4th grade looks pretty good. These are pretty tight. What about classrooms? So in addition to being tight in the classroom itself, how about classrooms within the building? There are 21 available regular education classrooms at Eddy. 20 of them would be used for K4. The 21st room, though not art specific, is currently used as a dedicated art room. The art room is maintained. Music, though, would have to move to the stage off the cafeteria, and Spanish would be on a cart being taught in each regular education classroom. If it so happened that we needed that extra section of kindergarten or extra section of 1st grade, one more teaching section, art would have to be moved out of its room. It would have to be taught as on a cart in the classrooms, and curriculum, I say possibly, I would probably change that to probably be rewritten because of projects that can be completed in regular ed settings, project storage would be difficult. If a second classroom is required, we would have to renovate room 14. That was segmented off with some walls so that it created offices for things like speech and resource and teacher consultant. That would have to, we'd remove those walls that were constructed to make it a classroom, or we'd have to put a portable somewhere on the grounds. And lastly, if STEM is going to be offered at each elementary school, a classroom is going to be needed to house the equipment and to provide the space for instruction somewhere down the road. So things are very tight classroom-wise. Big picture. I want to just quickly go through this. This talks about, again, open seats and open classrooms. The total district enrollment is indeed projected to decrease over the next 3 to 5 years. But if we drill down, that projected decrease will first be felt at the elementary level as smaller kindergartens are replacing larger graduating classes. We know that, we understand that. It's part of the impetus for why the board made the decision back in September to potentially close an elementary. But if we drill down even further, there were 3 fewer kindergarten sections this year as compared to last, but they occurred at Palms, Bell, and Pine River, not at Gearing or Eddy, which is the only 2 buildings that we can merge if we were to close a building. And in effect, where we project next year's enrollment to be 556, if we continue that projection out for the next 4 years after that, it stays right around that level. So we will for the next 5 years continue to be in this situation of a lack of space in classroom and in the building itself, especially as we look to add academic program. What about what happens at Pine River when we move early childhood and the CI to Pine River? Well, again, if we take a look at the projected number of students and rolling students this year's kindergarten forward to first and so forth and so on, open seats at the new Pine River. We have 8 in kindergarten, 8 in 1st grade, 18 between 2nd and 3rd because there is a projected multi-age classroom multi-age section there. So we could accommodate 18 new second or third graders there in 25. So a little bit more room to wiggle than was at the new Eddy, but still it's tight at kindergarten and first grade. The same can be true of classrooms. A little bit more room to wiggle, but 22 available regular education classrooms at Pine. 12 would be used for K-4 sections. 5 would be used for early childhood programming, and 2 each for both lower and upper cognitively impaired. So 12 and 5 is 17, and 4 more makes 19. The art and music rooms are maintained. There are currently separate art and music rooms right there. Spanish can initially be scheduled into the final available classroom. 17 and 4 makes 21. If an additional section is needed, though, Spanish would have to move to a cart. The second one would place art on the cart. And again, if we're looking at STEM in the future at all of our buildings, we will need a room for it. Kindergarten projections. Was 14-15 a blip or the new normal? We know approximately 70% of our eventual kindergarten enrollment comes to kindergarten roundup, but that is district-wide. So again, we drilled down deeper. We spent more time trying to make sure that we're giving you folks the best possible information. And by drilling down deeper, we found that at Palms over the last 6 to 8 years, it's almost 70%. It's about 68%, going all the way up to Pine River. About 80% or 81% of the Pine River kindergarten enrollment comes to kindergarten roundup. If you were to combine the Eddy and Gearing together, it would be right at that 70% figure. What these target numbers represent is if you take the number of, if you take one section of kindergarten, 29 kids, times 67.8%, that's 20. So what we're saying is at kindergarten roundup, if we have fewer than 20 kids from Palms area come to kindergarten roundup, we're pretty confident we would need only one section of kindergarten there. If we had more than 20 or more, we're going to need 2 sections, and so forth and so on. So we should have a pretty good idea based on who comes to kindergarten roundup. And here's my plug for kindergarten roundup, because it's very important that people come to kindergarten and roundup so that we do have accurate information. Wednesday, March 11th and 12th, noon to 5:30, right here in the boardroom, down the hall. We use the whole facility. We bring out a big yellow bus and put the kids on it, and they have a ball. All right. There's handouts and all sorts of great stuff for them to get them started off on the right foot for kindergarten. So we sure hope to see all of our kindergarten eligible 5-year-olds coming out for kindergarten roundup in a couple weeks. We looked at the available seats. This talks about potential impact of the Algonac school grade realignment. We're not campaigning. We're just accepting interest, and we're relating to you the interest that has been shown so far. And both at Palms and Bell River, families have been reaching out to ask about, will we, if we apply school of choice, will we be accepted, and those kind of things. They're doing some homework right now. So we showed you the available seats in the other 3 schools. This is what they would be projected at for Palms and Bell. You can see that at Bell, we're really tight right now. Kindergarten right now at Bell has 2 sections. You know that the max is 29 per, that's 58, and right now they are at 55. They have room for 3 kindergartners. So you project that to first grade, that means you could only accept 3 more without adding a teaching section. Similarly, things get pretty darn tight at next year's 5th grade at Palms, where there's only 2 seats open. They have 58 of the 60. They have 58 4th graders right now. We did apply for that DTE grant for STEM. DTE turned us down. We immediately then went and applied at Cargill, who we were very, very fortunate to have them support our high school STEM initiative along with General Motors. We hope to hear again in March whether or not we've received that grant, but that could also impact Palm's attendance or enrollment next year. The revised grant, so that we are not solely talking about Palms, was to pilot it at Palms in year 1 and then have the funding continue out so that we could extend to all elementaries in years 2 and 3, which goes back to my slide saying if that is the case and if we receive that funding, we certainly would not want to have to turn it down because of a lack of classroom space in the other buildings. Transportation. We thought of this as an issue back in December. We've done our some homework, dropping off approximately 556 K through 4th graders. On the positive side, because right now the St. Clair Middle School start time is the same as the elementary start time, the Gearing buses go to St. Clair Middle to start. That's their first stop after they've picked everybody up, and the 6th through 8th graders get off. So now the 5th through 8th graders would get off. So we would not have to add additional bus runs. That's the positive side. The not so exciting side is that there's currently 3 buses that drop off at Eddy and 6 at Gearing. So bringing 9 buses to Eddy would create a situation in which we'd either have to double stack in the bus loop, or we'd have to wait on 9th Street for buses in front of them to clear the bus loop. We've had a little conversation about trying to stagger the buses' arrival, and even if you could stagger them 2 to 3 minutes apart, 9 buses, that's 18 to 27 minutes, that's a half hour approximately. What will we be doing? We'd have to figure out what we'd be doing with that, with those students who come off the first bus for the half hour waiting for the students who come off the last bus. It's an issue that would have to be resolved.
At its high, how many students has Eddy had in the past?
I have documentation in the 450s or in the 400s, but we do have some folks who have indicated it's been as high as 5, but not on any district records that I have back from 99-2000.
What's the percentage of students that walk to Eddy?
I'm gonna guess. I apologize for not knowing the exact number, but the fact that we're only bringing 3, where we're bringing 6 to Gearing, so almost everybody's riding to Gearing. So it would make sense that it's probably about 50% are walkers or being driven. As long as we don't have to create overflows between Eddy and Pine River, another positive aspect would be the elimination of transfer buses. Not only would those students not miss instructional time, but those buses might have shorter runs. But there is also going to be an increase in car traffic in addition to bus traffic at arrival and dismissal. One possible way to maybe keep things moving in a more safe direction is to make 9th Street from Vine to Thornapple one-way going south. We could investigate signage as to either that happens all the time or only during school hours or something like that. Other than 2 houses on the corner of Thornapple and 9th with garages, there's no other reason that somebody would have to go the other way on that street. Additional staff parking is going to be necessary. There is some parking across 9th Street, or possibly an agreement could be reached with Emmanuel Lutheran to use those slots between Vine and Orchard. As for visitor parking, it is currently significantly limited. It will be even further limited. If we were to try to do site work, first we'd have to determine whether or not there was land along 9th Street to do it, to create maybe a larger bus loop, to create additional parking. But again, right now that would wait until the summer of 2017, as we are committed to the stadium turf and to Pine River projects. Moving expenses, which were one of the issues from December, and I put in italics unknown complications of moving the 5th grade to St. Clair Middle. Moving the teachers' materials, that shouldn't be any different than moving them to Eddie or anything. But what has come up is 5th graders would truly transition from being elementary students to secondary students because there is not playground equipment at St. Clair Middle School. We would not be investing in playground equipment, so there would not be, I can't imagine where we would have 5th grade recess. What are those moving expenses? Again, these are the best current estimates based on looking up history from when we have moved programs previously, plus experience of our operations director, Mr. Grzelka, in his former district. Teacher items from Gearing to Eddie, about $12,500. Again, the furniture, age appropriate. If we're going to create 2 more kindergarten sections at Eddie, then they're going to need kindergarten furniture as opposed to upper L furniture, so we'd have to take the kindergarten furniture over. There probably, or there may be just some nicer furniture altogether, so if we could be swapping out stuff, you know, so there could be a good deal of furniture movement involved in addition to moving and teacher instructional materials. For the early childhood program, playground and fencing. Fencing, those little ones, that's a code, it's part of code compliance, so that they don't run off on us. All right. You'll see most playgrounds are fenced in. Again, we'll move the teacher instructional and all of the therapy equipment that comes with that program. We would need to do some building fixtures, as those students are 4-year-olds. And we would have to potentially add some sinks. Moving 5th grade to St. Clair Middle. Again, not as many teachers. We're guessing about half that amount, probably even potentially less. Playground equipment. I put it up there, but I can't imagine us wanting to go down that route. So, savings. If you remember from earlier in the presentation, we started with instructional, non-instructional, and cost of ownership. We got to $484. Moving expenses would reduce $72,000 out of that, so $412. But let's take a look at what it would be specific to the gearing closure, because we said the 240 from instructional positions are going to come regardless of closing a building as we staff to size. So if you take that off the top line, you take the 196, the 48, and at this particular point in time, first year savings for making such a move would be approximately $160,000. What about growth? What about unknowns? Well, I have some extremely good news to report. And you wouldn't think that 9 more students is good news, but having a February count higher than an October count is very rare. Not just in an environment, even in environments where population is rising, because what it tells us is that our secondary schools are doing an outstanding job, because usually you lose kids between then because they realize they can't graduate and maybe they just leave the system. So for us, we have the wonderful safety net that is called Riverview East High School. So many of our students who indeed find themselves in that situation, at least in our 2 schools and surrounding schools, find themselves going to Riverview for the second trimester. But I don't want to discount the work being done at Marine City High School and St. Clair High School to keep kids on target to graduate and to graduate them. You saw in Ron's presentation that 98% graduation rate, all right? That is something to be very, very proud of. But it also tells us that even with that going on, that would just maintain enrollment, right? But we're actually up 9, so that trend of out-migration might also be reversing a little bit, which wouldn't that be wonderful?
How did last year's February count compare to last year's October?
Doggone it, I need to bring materials with me.
Well,
we'll figure
it
it out.
just pointed out as a positive, maybe it's normal.
No, it's not, that's, no.
Trustee Distelrath, are you looking at those numbers?
In 13-14, it was, it went down 36.
30.
Went
So
down
it's huge.
36.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. And thank you, Trustee Distelrath. Opportunities for student growth, because we were talking about the potential or how tight our buildings would be, both inside classrooms and in classrooms within the buildings itself, seats within classrooms, classrooms within the buildings. We do have opportunities for student growth. Kindergarten enrollment may indeed just be a blip, might not be the new normal of 240. We're hoping that we're somewhere above that. The Algonac reorganization. You heard a presentation last week that the county is experiencing renewed job growth. Okay, has that translated into students coming, families coming to our district? Those things are lagging behind the job growth, but there are positive signs in that area. Elementary STEM, and we continue to talk about maybe somewhere in the future the idea of a balanced calendar or year-round school option for some families, and to do that we would need obviously the space and also buildings at which that could accommodate that. What are unknowns? Well, unknowns include state funding. The governor just proposed a budget within the last couple of weeks. And in addition to that budget is also the May 5th ballot election, in which the 1% or 1 penny sales tax will be on the ballot for roads and for school funding. It's going to be, as all indications are, that there's an uphill fight to get a positive result on that, but we all need to support that, as it will stabilize a good deal of our school funding, so as to protect it from use at the university level, not the community college level, but the university level. And if you noticed in the governor's most recent budget, there is additional monies for the universities if they agree to keeping their tuition hikes below a certain amount.
2%.
Yeah, 2% below a certain amount. In the future, that wouldn't even be a deal, because they wouldn't be able to get additional monies out of the school aid fund, which were always targeted for K-12 education. Okay. And then between now and the next 16 months, all 5 bargaining unit contracts will be worked on, will be either expired and or opened, and so there is work to be done. That is an unknown as well, as to how those will turn out over the next 16 months. The restructuring committee met on the 18th, they met last week, and at a minimum, they recommended that a decision is not made prior to knowing the outcome of kindergarten roundup. And they wanted me to share that with you here this evening. And with that, I'll take any questions or you guys, or discussion.
Open up for questions, comments, discussion.
Go ahead.
Mr. Richley.
My first question is, for the instructional positions, the savings, is that would that be through attrition?
Correct.
And that, was that a part of the projections of the information that we got at the last meeting?
Yes, it was. It's been there. It's been part of the information since we've been talking about this, at least as much as December or earlier.
I mean, I don't know if, like, in the one without the school closure, like, I know it was in the one with the school closure,
Right.
but was it in the one without the school closure?
Yes, yes, it was.
So, I mean, really, I don't know why that's even in the school closure savings then.
Well, because the impetus for the board to act back in September was not to close a school just to close a school. It was to do it in the context of the deficit. And so it's important that we continue to remind folks that there are going to be savings, because we are continuing to work toward eliminating the deficit, and this would be part of that.
Also think that the school closure committee needed that number of positions that we were going to save based on moving kids back and forth, as to how much that was going to reduce our savings that we would have normally gotten.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that that's kind of, it's just not something that I think is, I mean, at least according to what I looked at, I mean, I think that's it's somewhat misleading because it's like, for some people, it's like if we close it, we're gonna get that 240,000, but really in reality, we're gonna get it either way.
Which I hope that I've been consistent throughout all of these presentations and multiple times tonight to say that we'll be receiving this savings
Right.
regardless of whether a school is
Right.
closed or not, as well as this particular slide, which breaks out the Gearing-specific closure.
Right.
Question in regards to the STEM.
Yeah.
If we are, this district again is blessed with grants to help do that, we're looking at each elementary school would have to have one specific designated classroom in order to maintain the equipment needed for STEM.
Correct. Maintains, with students would be cycling through like they would through a music class or anything else, but you would not be carrying that equipment from room to room for a variety of reasons, including things like just loss, breakage, anything that might come with that.
And the grants that we received that did compensate and pay for all the equipment that was needed.
That would have been at the secondary level, yes.
Okay.
We're in the first
Right.
year of the
Right.
3 years.
Thank you.
Mhm.
After listening to your presentation and visiting the schools and talking to people and looking at the binder a gazillion times and all the work that the community and administrators and teachers and everybody has put into it, and I know that we have to be fiscally responsible. I understand that. But I think at the same time, we have to do what's best for kids. And I don't think closing a building at this point in time is best for kids. Mrs. Frank and I went through the buildings again today, looking at Gearing and Eddy. What I'd like to see us do is to come up with a plan whereby maybe taking 3 to 5 years, but looking at, and I really think we have to do this because we are one district, but we service 2 communities. But we have to keep in mind that we are one district, and we want to be able to offer at both ends the same program. And we've all seen it with the numbers going down quicker, and I hate to use North and South, I hate to use St. Clair, Marine City. At one end, when you have one end decreasing and the other one, the north end is decreasing, but not as rapidly as the south end, you're going to end up not being able to offer the same programs. For instance, AP classes. And we are here to do what's best for kids. So my position at this time is to not close a school, changing the boundary lines, and restructuring and having our middle schools be 5-8. That's what I would like to see us do at this point in time.
Well, to do that, I'll react first to that, and then I'll say how that could be done procedurally. I think that if there was a vote tonight to rescind the September 8th motion to close an elementary, then what I would like to see happen is some direction that allows for greater flexibility. I understand, Trustee Biebuck, the idea of redistricting. I understand the 5-8 middle schools. All of those things have to be part of the consideration, but aren't directed to be part of the motion that this will happen. Like it prevents flexibility. Just like the closing of an elementary school made us focus solely on one thing as opposed to the bigger picture. Those things that you've talked about are extremely important components of a larger plan that has to be considered and probably will be part of. But I would recommend against making it part of the motion that forces a hand. Okay. Now, with respect to procedurally, you would need a motion to rescind the September 8th direction to close the school, because there was never a motion specifically to close Gearing, so you don't have to
Right,
do anything like
right.
that. But if you just decided we won't close Gearing tonight, you still have the board-approved action that we have to close a school. Instead, you have to somebody has to move to do that, to rescind the action, if that makes sense.
And just to support the idea of not closing the school this year, you know, there are a lot of things about the numbers that would cause me to not want to make that move this year, that decision at this time. A couple different things stood out. The fact that the Eddie Gearing combination would be very, very tight, to the point of having Spanish on a cart, possibly art on a cart, and no room for STEM, should we add it, and no chance for that to change in the next 5 years. So even though numbers are going down, they're not going down in that area. So we would be very tight, and we would continue to be tight for 5 years. The other issue is we just moved the early childhood program a couple years ago from ECEC to Gearing, and this proposal asks us to move it again to Pine River. And just again, looking at numbers and where the declining enrollment is, it's very feasible that you would be looking to move that program again, probably 2 or 3 years later. And that's not, I mean, first of all, it costs money to do that. Second of all, it's all of the lives of those people who are being moved from one building to another building to another building within probably 4 to 5 years, 3 buildings. So those are all reasons, you know, for me to say, you know, we shouldn't take this action at this time. I think it's been a really good work that the committee's done to look at every possible different scenario and every different possible number. I think we know a lot more about the numbers that we're dealing with, and the different situations, as far as if you draw a line here, draw a line there. And we just know that we're not saving a lot of money by making this move at this time, saving a very little bit of money for the upheaval. And so I just, those are all reasons for me to agree with the motion to rescind the action. So.
And again, let me echo the compliments and the kudos to the work of the committee. It is through their hard work. It is through just, you know, looking through that binder however many times and just doing the work, even at home, that we can come to the conclusion that this might not be the right time to make this move.
Additional comments, Mr. Richley?
Has there been discussion at the committee level about the marketing plan idea of?
Not at the committee levels. We've been continuing to try to put together the most accurate figures, both in terms of classroom space, building space, and savings over the last couple of meetings. Really wanted to make sure that we got you this information tonight, because I know that folks are starting to get pretty darn anxious on this, and even with Kindergarten Roundup rolling. So no on that, beyond the fact that very supportive of the idea of pursuing growth within the district.
I have a question for you, Alan. What do you mean by marketing? Because I know that Dr. Skalka had said that the superintendents in St. Clair County have agreed not to steal students. So, I mean, are you talking about like billboards or radio commercials as far as marketing?
Not at this point, because there's kind of a gentleman's agreement
Right.
among
Okay.
districts. But I think that for us to, whether it's to get a PR thing with the Times Herald and Voice, and, you know, go out there and kind of tout how good our district is, because we're obviously first in the county when it comes to academics, and I think that that's important to
Okay.
to market and show the community and come in first for schools of choice. So it's very important. And it's also something that might, even with real estate agents and things like that, like to bring people into the community and a reason to move here, so.
Well, whether we call it marketing or we just, we like to brag about our kids, you know? And so most recently, the STEM class at Marine City High School was featured in the Times Herald. I know that we've contacted them regarding the business competition that will be held again, if not next Friday, whenever it's rescheduled because of the winter days. So we always give them the heads up. We always want to do that. Just because, like I said, yes, is there some positive feedback maybe from some folks who live outside of the district, but we'll never stop trying to brag about our kids.
Well, I think that poster that you had put together this past year made a statement. I have one hanging in my office. And I had a gentleman that owns his own business and was there, and he wanted a copy. Thank goodness I had extra posters. He wanted a copy of that to put in his business. He said, I want people to know when they walk into this community that we've got great schools. So that type of a thing, I think will have some great impact. We just need to get it out there more and more.
And I've got a few left over. If there are any businesses, I will drive them to you.
Yes, Mrs. Frank.
I just wanted to say that I think at the time that the motion was made back in September, I know for myself, being on the board, I was getting very frustrated with listening to the numbers and how we were going deeper and deeper into debt, and I didn't feel as though we were doing anything about it. So that's why I felt the need to support the motion to just say we're going to close the school so that we could actually focus on doing a little bit more in-depth work. Obviously, that's been done. The work of the committee, and then Ms. Spivak and I again, I again toured the three elementary schools, Gearing, Eddy, and Pine, because I hadn't been there for about a year, I think. But I can't, in good conscience, support a move of especially the CI program again. I think that program in Gearing is just set up beautifully. I just can't, I don't see it. That's not what I think is in the best interest of the students at this time. Then along with some of the other information that we have, I really think that we could probably postpone the closing of an elementary school right now and work towards, some other options and, getting a balanced budget in the next couple of years. But to reiterate Mrs. Spivak's feelings, I like to see a plan. We've got facilities that can either be, repurposed, they can be sold. The boundaries have got to be changed. I think that needs to be looked at immediately. And then, bringing about balance for both ends of the district. So that's how I feel about all of this.
Great, thank you.
Well, as I indicated, as I hear the board's sentiment, we do need a motion.
I'll make a motion to rescind the action to close the school.
Support.
Any additional comments or questions? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. So carried.
Jim, I like to make a secondary motion.
Yes.
I'd also like the board to direct Dr. Skalka to develop such a strategic plan over the course of the next 3 to 5 years that would include balancing that budget so we can get our fund balance back up, restructuring by relocating all 5th graders to their respective middle schools for both ends of the district, the consolidation, repurposing, improving, and/or disposing of our current facilities. I'd also like the academic and athletic program brought into balance and expanded, if at all possible, through STEM, also through a fine arts program that I think the owners of the Marine City Theaters have indicated an interest in providing our district. And I'd lastly like the boundaries changed for the 2015-2016 school year.
I think, honestly, I think
You'll
a
need
few of
to
those things are a little bit too specific and almost would put us.
We need a second first.
Oh, sorry.
I'll second it.
Okay. No, sorry.
I think a couple of those things are a little too specific and put us in the same position as the motion from last year to close the school. I don't agree necessarily in moving fifth graders or in changing any boundaries. I agree in looking at those things and studying those things and considering those things, but I don't agree in doing those things unconditionally at this point.
I think that was to my initial hesitancy. When you say a 3 to 5 year plan, let's make sure that the community understands that that doesn't mean we're going to wait 3 years. It
Right.
means what are we going to do from this day forward through the next 3 years, to the next
Right.
5 years, so that we are looking long-term, that we have a larger plan in place to balance the budget than going from one specific thing to the next specific thing. And so the more general that motion can be to create a strategic plan to do this, understanding the desires of the board and the components with which they would like to see addressed. I understand that completely, but again, you may put yourself in a position where you're coming back and having to rescind again portions of an agenda, portions of a motion at a later date. I think the charge is clear. The charge is clear. The components of that charge is clear, but it doesn't necessarily mean we have to specifically say what those exact things are.
Well, I specifically want to state that I want the boundaries changed, and I want the academic and athletic programming brought into balance for the entire district.
Starting.
I don't have to put a start date,
Right.
but I want those, I will not, that's my motion, and that's the way I feel about it.
And I support that motion.
I understand, and I believe I understand how important those things are to the board. And it would be part of the plan. It's just at what points during those three, the first year, second year, third year, to make those things happen. I would ask that you do not tie hands to say that it has to be done at a specific time.
Well, it
But
needs
look-
to be done within the next 3 to 5 years.
Absolutely.
Over the course of the next 3 to 5 years.
Absolutely.
But wouldn't it make sense if we started to change the boundaries now, and you put all the kids into place where they need be, then we wouldn't even have to consider.
But if we do that,
Closing the school again.
remember, as we change boundaries, we're adding teaching sections back. So it might be beneficial to see where kindergarten lands, where the school of choice lands, what happens with those things first, so that we have a better idea of how to move those students.
I think we need to know what our goal is too. I mean, the goal is
just
to
said the goal.
maximize programs and maximize efficiency. If that's the goal, those are good goals.
I think
the
those
committee
are
did
the
a lot of-
goals.
The committee did a ton of work and looked at everything and spent a lot of time. And now we're putting forward the idea of changing boundaries with no.
We've been working on
no
this
look at it.
for 12 to 15 months.
It's nothing new.
This isn't just something new. So we have put a lot of work into this and a lot of thought into this.
The goal is the balanced budget.
Correct.
Absolutely.
Well, and doing
That's
what's
it.
best for all the students in the district.
absolutely.
The kids.
And now,
I mean, that's our number one goal for the board.
And I think my motion kind of spells out some goals. I don't have a problem with removing the years as far as the timeline goes, but I stand pretty firm on the fact that over the course of the next 3 to 5 years, these things should and can be, accomplished.
As goals that are appropriate to be part of a strategic plan. I would just ask, like we've talked, that we remove specific timelines, but that I keep you informed as to when these things happen and how they happen.
Okay, so do you want me to revise my motion? Is that what I need to do?
Yes.
Okay, so I like to make a motion that the board direct Dr. Skalka to develop a strategic plan over the course of the next 3 to 5 years that includes a balanced budget without the use of fund balance, restructuring, boundaries changed, academic and athletic programming brought into balance and expanded, and consolidation, repurposing, improving, and/or disposing of our current facilities. Now I need another second.
I'll second it, but I still have a question, though. In my eyes, we've dragged our feet on a lot of things. We put it off, put it off, put it off. How long till this starts, till we start seeing progress on this?
Well, you start seeing progress.
I know you want to wait till after kindergarten roundup
Right.
and.
Well, you've already allowed myself, the administration, and whoever we enlist to work on this, an extra month to work on it by not waiting until next month to make this, because initially the conversation and discussion was we wouldn't take any action until after kindergarten roundup. So this provides, we have direction. We have clear direction. We can build off of the work that's already been done.
Right.
And I think it's wise to say that a first iteration of a plan would be provided to you after school of choice applications are in, so that's mid-July. So a first iteration of a plan is, easily before the end of this school year or the start of the next.
When do we see the next iteration of the budget?
There will be a final draft, that should be presented to you by the end of May for adoption in June. That will be for the final, the current fiscal year, and we'll have projections for our next fiscal year.
At the same time? Thank you.
Mr. Rishley.
At this point, I had a couple people call me from the restructuring / school closure committee.
Okay.
And the question that I got was, what exactly is going to be that committee's goal moving forward from here? Because now that we've rescinded that decision, is there a role, or is there?
There's a role for public input. How that will be determined, we have to talk with that group. We have to make that determination. I would move away from a group of 30, 40 meeting every other week. To be honest, again, I am spending a bulk of time just preparing for meetings, just to carry out meetings, not doing the work to try to get together the plan. So I think there needs to be a role for public input into that plan. What that is, we got to determine.
I think that's something that should be, with permission, amended into that
Just
motion.
again, please don't hamstring us. If you want to say that a role for public input is required, great. Okay, but don't go beyond that so that we are forced into something that doesn't fit round peg, or was it square peg round hole or something like that.
Right. And I think that that's something that's important, because I can remember when I was in Pine River Elementary, I believe I was in the 4th grade, and when I was moving into 5th grade, when they redistricted, I believe they had somewhat of a committee process back then that would have been like in 1998 or something like that. But that's something that I think is critical to the process. But
We have been extremely good about public input, whether it be putting minutes, agendas on webs, the presentations on the web, the committee itself. We will continue to provide opportunities for public input.
Right. But could you please, read that again?
To direct Dr. Skalka to develop a strategic plan over the course of the next 3 to 5 years that includes a balanced budget without the use of fund balance, restructuring, boundaries change, consolidation, repurposing, improving and/or disposing of our current facilities to their best use, and academic and athletic programming brought into balance and expanded.
Okay, I have no problem with that, but the thing that I think, when you said balanced budget without use of fund balance, is that within?
Over the course of the next 3 to 5 years.
Okay.
that we're going to work really hard to do everything that we need to do, because by not closing a school, the community needs to know that we're going to allow that fund balance to go really low for 1 year. But the plan is that once, we get through some other things that are going on, that we can actually put another plan in place that will start to build that fund balance back up to hopefully 10% at some point.
I agree, and but I mean, the spirit of the motion is for a plan at this point, to have a specific plan that we put out to the community.
No, we're asking administration to
Right,
come back with the plan.
right,
Correct,
that's
yes,
what I'm-
yes, absolutely.
My only question is the boundary change. What boundary change is being recommended?
Well, there isn't, and that's that specifics
Yeah.
piece. The idea is we need to find one that makes sense. If
So
there's-
we're
if
not
there's one out-
committing
if
to
there's-
anything. We're going to change a boundary based on this, but we don't know what it's going to be.
To
The
extent-
boundaries-
To the extent that which it facilitates other pieces of the plan so as to achieve the balanced budget. Because again, in the end, that's the bottom line. The bottom line is to get to a consistently balanced budget, right? So in the context of that, balancing the district to the end that we can balance the budget, right? But we can't again, come out and say like we did, close an elementary, make the line X here tonight without knowing.
So we're leaving ourselves a lot of parameter to make a decision down the road.
Absolutely.
We're just saying we're going to be looking at
And
these
it's
things
an
and making a
important,
plan.
It's an
Correct.
important
it's an
piece.
important
It's
piece.
important. Because it also addresses the academic and athletic balance that we've been working so hard for.
Yeah, I agree that we want every student in the district to have the same opportunities. I agree 100% with that.
Good.
I just
Great.
don't know how, we don't know exactly how to make that happen or how it's going to happen.
No, that's why we're directing Dr. Skalka to come up with a plan.
Okay, that's very good.
Can we vote on it now?
I just have one more question, I'm sorry. But am I correct in saying there's going to be a separate action item for any of the things that are in this motion?
It's one motion.
One motion.
Well, I mean the items that are in the motion. Like, there's going to be a separate vote.
No, it's
No,
one motion.
one
It's
motion.
to create a plan of which those are
I
goals
know
and
what he
components thereof.
No, I understand that, but I
Okay.
mean, down the road, when
Down
something
the,
is.
yeah, down the road,
There's gonna be a
down the
separate
road,
Oh,
yes.
yes, yes.
Absolutely. Yep, absolutely, yep.
Well, yeah, we would vote on the plan once presented. Okay. Okay. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. So moved.
Okay.
We'll continue and move on with our board action items. Per administration recommendation, the board approve the Neola policy changes as presented at its January 26, 2015 meeting. A motion is needed.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Kennegbauer,
Support.
support by Mrs. Bbuck. Comments or questions? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. So carried. Recommendation action, per administration recommendation, the board approved Marine City High School, St. Clair High School Spring 2016 Costa Rica trip. Motion is needed.
So moved.
Moved by Mrs. Frank, support by Mrs. Murphy. Comments or questions?
Can I go?
I don't know. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Item C, recommended action. Per administration recommendation, the board approve East China School District to be added onto the SCCTEN Consortium Master Telecommunications Agreement for the period of July 1st, 2015 through June 30th, 2018. Motion needed.
So moved.
Moved by Mrs. Bbuck,
Support.
support by Mr. Kennegbauer. Comments, questions?
This is, I provided you information in an update, I believe, a week ago Friday. This is so that we can participate in the county phone bid to keep our phone charges at the lowest price possible.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Item 10, closed session, was removed from the ballot by a motion at the beginning of the meeting. Items for the next board meeting are on your calendar. With that, we stand adjourned. Thank you.